Hello everybody, we are here again at Sunset Station with Chuck Esposito, Director of Race and Sports. Chuck, it's a very exciting time. We've got a lot of sports going on. Let's start off with the NBA. The playoffs, I think in one word, have been surprising so far. Do you maybe want to talk about some of these surprising performances from the teams, maybe good or bad?
When it comes to pro basketball, the playoffs have been really surprising. I think the fact that you've seen parity, we've been crying for parity and screaming for it for a while, and we have it now. You look at Indiana, the way that they've played the Cleveland Cavaliers, really good series tied at 2-2. I think Washington-Toronto is a big surprise. Toronto, the number 1 seed out east, that series is 2-2 as well. And then out west, you had the number 6 seeded Pelicans who swept through the number 3 seeded Blazers. So it's been really interesting so far. There's been some great games, some great streaks, some great players. Philly was hot coming into the playoffs. They stayed hot. But I think you look at both conferences now, and there's a lot more parity, which I think is great for the league, great for the network, and definitely great for our side of the counter.
Chuck, we were talking a little bit before this about the players. The players have come out. Do you want to talk a little bit about some individual breakout stars, or maybe the stars that we know and love?
I'm not sure there's a lot of breakout stars this year, but the stars have definitely come out to play. I think you look at LeBron. I don't think Cleveland would be 2-2. I think they'd clearly be down 3-1 in the series if it wasn't for LeBron. I think you look at some of the other stars. The way Antetokounmpo's played for Milwaukee, Harden for Houston, and then look at the Pelicans between Holiday and the way that Anthony Davis has played. They really carried that team. So I think the stars that come out to play, which is exciting. Once you get to that second round, though, a lot changes. I think we look for competitive balance. I think it's even more so in the second round, but it has been good so far. You've seen some really good matchups, great crowds, and great handle in all of our sports books throughout the industry.
Yeah, and Chuck, speaking of that, the sports books here, if anybody has the STN Sports app or coming into our sports books, do you want to maybe touch on a few of the props that they can get, or what are we looking for as far as that?
I think as far as props go, we're always trying to think outside the box, add a few things to it, and if you do have the STN mobile app, I think the biggest thing is in play. Throughout the course of these games, a lot of times you've got a favorite that's down by a lot, or there's a bunch of different things that kind of we've added to the menu as far as in-play goes. It really is a new dynamic for the mobile bettor.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And, well, something that also can be happening on the STN Sports app is pro football. And so we'll switch gears a little bit. We'll go over to the draft coming up. Again, very exciting. Chuck, how do you think this draft class and what we're looking at this year stacks up to maybe previous years?
I think when you look at the pro football draft, I mean, it is a quarterback-driven league, and you've got 3 teams at the top that need quarterbacks. But I think when you look at Darnold and Mayfield and Rosen and Allen, none of those guys is maybe Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck coming out. Yet teams have assets, and it's not an asset-driven league. It's a quarterback-driven league. Last year we saw Chicago flip-flop 1 spot from 3 to 2 for Mitchell Trubisky. So who knows what's going to happen this year. I think the 3 best players in the draft are not quarterbacks. I think it's Barkley, the running back from Penn State, Chubb, the defensive end from NC State, and Quentin Nelson, the guard from Notre Dame. But those 3 guys might be available from 5, 6, or 7 on. So we'll see what happens. But I think it's wide open at the top. You're going to see a lot of trades, teams trying to move up if one of those quarterbacks starts to drop. And who knows what Cleveland does at this time. But they're the team that's on the clock now, guys.
Yeah, and so I want to press you on that a little bit more, talking quarterbacks, because that's what everybody loves to talk about, the faces of each of the teams. I want to challenge you. Can you maybe rank from top 1 to 3, because you see the top 3 teams are all in need of a quarterback, maybe some predictions on where the quarterbacks will go in order?
You know, it's really hard. I think when you look at the 4 quarterbacks, and I'm not going to rank them right now, but I'm going to mention them. It's Allen, it's Darnold, it's Rosen, and it's Mayfield. I think it's wide open. It's what each team kind of likes about those guys. We've heard Cleveland tied to 3 of those guys. The only one they haven't been tied to yet is Rosen. I think Mayfield is the guy that I like the most. I just like his swagger. I like what he's all about, the way that he played in college. I think you look at Darnold, he turned the ball over a lot. There's some off-field questions with Rosen. And I think you look at Allen, it's the efficiency and the completion percentage at Wyoming and in that conference, yet he's got that big arm. So if he goes to Cleveland or if Buffalo trades up, they both like that. I'm going to say for me, it's Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, and then followed by Allen. That's the top 4, but it is the Cleveland Browns, so who knows what they'll do at number 1. But again, if I'm Cleveland, I'm taking Barkley number 1.
Fair enough. That works. And so moving, beyond the top few picks of the draft, any sort of crazy predictions. I don't know if there's a player who's a sleeper or somebody who might be a little bit underrated or not getting any respect. Do you have any perspective on that, or maybe somebody who's a little bit overrated? Anything that, not the main players that are being talked about?
Well, I think there's a lot of sleepers, guys. I think the interesting part about this draft is the amount of trades that could happen. And I think, the Giants are saying all the right things right now about Beckham, but if somebody gives them a big offer, and the San Francisco 49ers, they kind of have all the pieces in place right now. They've got Jimmy Garoppolo, they signed McKinnon in the offseason. The one thing they don't have is a big wideout. There's been some rumblings possibly of them looking to pick up or trade for Julio Jones, who Shanahan had in Atlanta. I still could see them be tied, maybe to OBJ. I think you're going to see a lot of trades this year, more than you've seen in the past. And I think you are going to see a team like Buffalo, Arizona, maybe even the Patriots, with all the assets that they have, jump up for that quarterback. Again, I can't stress enough, everybody talks about all the assets that several of these teams have. It's not an asset-driven league. It is a quarterback-driven league. So somebody like Buffalo, Arizona, New England, I think is going to trade up to make a big splash for a quarterback.
So as if this draft could not be any more exciting, we can make it a little bit more exciting. People who are in town going to our books on the STN Sports app, if you want to maybe touch on the props again for the draft and anything that, because I think people don't realize that you can actually bet on the draft.
You can bet on the draft. We've got a whole page of different props up. The two that kind of jump off the page a little bit for me is how many quarterbacks will get drafted in the first round. I think you can make a pretty good case for 4 for sure. It's the 4 that I've been talking about. Then you look at Lamar Jackson, you look at Mason Rudolph. The prop number's 5. So, is there going to be more or less than 5? I think you could possibly see 6. I think Mason Rudolph and Lamar Jackson both jump in there. And then I think how many running backs will go in round 1 and 2 combined. I think you look at that as well. I'm sure that Barkley's going to go in the first round, probably in the top 5 picks. But after that, do you see another back go? And it's interesting because when you look at running backs, the last running back to go number 1 overall was in 1985. It was Kajana Carter out of Penn State, same school as Barkley. The last running back to go number 2 overall was Reggie Bush, and that was in 2006. So you think about running backs, you can get really talented guys in the 3rd round. Kamara, Hunt, Howard have all gone in the 3rd round and have become the centerpieces for their offenses. So we'll see if somebody's willing to take that risk and jump up for a running back again early in the draft.
Yeah. And last but not least, we've got all the information we need, and now the best part is where to actually watch it. Chuck, I know we have maybe possibly a viewing party going on here at Sunset.
You're preaching to me now. That's awesome. We do. It's our 5th annual Get Drafted at Sunset draft party. It's Thursday night, the 26th. Doors open at 3:30. It's a fun party. Everybody that walks in while supplies last gets a Get Drafted at Sunset t-shirt. There'll be food and beverage specials, draft caps galore. So we'll be giving away 1 draft cap while each team's on the clock. You get a raffle ticket, and maybe you win your favorite team's draft cap, or you can trade it. Like, there'll be trades going on that day. So it's a lot of fun. Get huge crowds in there. If you want to come out and watch the draft with about 200 of your closest friends, come on down to Sunset Station. It's our 5th annual again. Get Drafted at Sunset Pro Football Draft Party.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It
Chuck.
is. It's a blast.
Thank you so much again for taking the time. We really appreciate it, and it should be a fun next couple of days in the sporting world.